Hey everyone. So in today's video, we've got a lot to talk about as we dive into the latest weather pattern that's setting up across the US. And honestly, it's one of the more interesting transitions we've seen in a little while. There's a noticeable shift taking place in both temperatures and overall storm activity. And we're about to go on a bit of a ride with what the models are showing over the next couple of weeks. Let's start with temperatures because that's where we're going to see some real changes happening quickly. And just the next few days, a colder air mass is expected to move in and take over much of the eastern half of the country. And we're talking about a pretty decent drop in temperatures compared to where we've been recently. But here's the thing. It doesn't look like that cooler pattern is going to stick around for too long. After the cold air settles in, we're already seeing signs that it's going to shift again. Warmer air is waiting just behind it, and it looks like we'll be returning to more seasonable conditions. Maybe even slightly above normal for some areas as we head deeper into the month. So if you're someone who loves consistency in your weather, I hate to break it to you, but we're in for a bit of a roller coaster when it comes to temperatures. Now, aside from the temperature swings, let's talk about overall activity. We've been in a pretty active stretch lately, tons of storms, lots of severe weather. And that's been going on for the last week or two. First up, that's finally starting to wind down. There's a noticeable lull showing up on the models, meaning we should see a period of quieter weather setting in soon, especially compared to what we've just been through. Of course, that doesn't mean we're totally out of the woods. Some of the longer range model guidance is suggesting that we could see things start to ramp back up again toward the end of this pattern. So that's something I'm going to be watching very closely. These back and forth swings in activity are pretty typical this time of year, but they can sneak up on us if we're not keeping a close eye. Looking ahead to that mid-April stretch, specifically the 11th through the 15th, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook is showing those below normal temperatures, especially concentrated in the southeast, which matches up perfectly with the incoming cold air we just talked about. We're also seeing some cooler air out west, though it's a bit more patchy there. What's interesting is that even as that chill starts to dominate parts of the country, there's already a signal that we're going to flip back to a warmer pattern shortly afterward. That's thanks to a negative Pane. Pacific North American pattern, which typically pushes cold air into the east initially, but then helps warm air build back up and push eastward as the pattern evolves. And right on cue, we're seeing warmer conditions taking hold over the central parts of the country, especially the plains and Rockies during this time frame. So even while the east is cooling, that warmth is waiting in the wings, and it's already starting to nudge its way back in from the west. Now, in terms of precipitation during that same period, things are noticeably quieter than they've been. A lot of the active storm systems that have been sweeping through the southern US are fading out, and it's really the northern part of the country that's hanging on to some precipitation. We're still seeing some wetter than normal conditions in parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, but overall, most areas are trending drier. So it's a decent break from all the chaos we've had recently. As we extend our view to the 8 to 14 day range, covering roughly April 13th. Through the 19th, the pattern becomes a little more complex. There's still some cooler air hanging on in the northwest while the southwest warms up again. This creates a sort of neutral PNA setup where there isn't a strong signal for either a dominant ridge or trough. The central part of the country, especially the plains, stays pretty warm through this time. And eventually, that warmth starts expanding eastward again, reaching the southeast and mid-Atlantic. So as we get deeper into that second week of April, temperatures begin to moderate and trend back toward more typical spring values, if not slightly warmer. Precipitation during this period tells a mixed story. The southwest and southeast look like they'll continue to be on the drier side, but there's a noticeable uptick in activity around Texas, Oklahoma, and parts of New Mexico. So the southern plains might get back into a more active weather setup again, and then further north near the Canadian border, through the northwest, north central states and into the Great Lakes and Northeast, we're seeing signals for above normal precipitation again. So while the south starts to quiet down, the north may continue to deal with stormier conditions. Zooming in on what's happening right now, we've got some ongoing severe weather happening across parts of the south central US and Midwest. Today, we're looking at another moderate risk day, which is kind of wild considering how many of those we've already seen lately. Between enhanced moderate, And even high risk days, it's just been relentless. Day after day, we've had dangerous, severe weather setups playing out. And I know a lot of folks are more than ready for that to take a break. And thankfully, that break is finally on the horizon. The mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast are also dealing with some stormy conditions today. Scattered showers, maybe a few thunderstorms. And way out west, we're seeing some late season snowfall in the Four Corners region and even the lower plains, which is always interesting to see in early April. As we head into Sunday, April 6th, there's a low pressure system setting up near eastern Tennessee. That's going to help trigger more thunderstorm activity, particularly under and around that low. Meanwhile, if you look back toward the west, we've got a classic positive PNA showing up. That's what's helping drive all the warmth out there. It's also why we're seeing that cold air pushing into the east, especially through the Sunday into Monday timeframe. By Monday, those thunderstorms shift more into the southeastern U.S., running from Virginia down the coast. And again, the west remains warm and relatively quiet. But the northwest is starting to see another wave of moisture, rain in the lowlands, and snow in the mountains. It's nothing extreme, but it does point to some interesting pattern shifts developing. The east stays chilly, but that cold air won't hold on forever. On Tuesday, April 8th, we've got another batch of moisture starting to push into the northwest and some colder air coming with it. That's the early signal of a negative PNA starting to take shape, which, like I mentioned earlier, sets the stage for warmer air to eventually come back eastward. And here's something a little unusual. We might see a bit of snowfall for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast on Tuesday. Not something we see too often this late in the season, but the models are definitely picking up on it. Moving into Wednesday, the 9th. Things go quiet again across much of the country.
Sure.
The temperature split between a warm west and cold east remains, but precipitation really backs off for a day. Thursday, the 10th, might bring a few scattered showers, maybe some isolated thunderstorms, but again, nothing super widespread or intense. Then by Friday, the 11th, we're looking at another increase in storm activity, especially for the eastern U.S. We're talking the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Southeast, dealing with rounds of thunderstorms and rain. That pattern continues into Saturday the 12th. So if you're in those regions, expect a wet stretch heading into that weekend. The Northwest stays unsettled with some cooler temperatures and off and on precipitation. But by Sunday the 13th, the jet stream starts to shift again, this time bringing warmer air back toward the east. If we're looking at the upper air pattern, there's a ridge forming over the central U.S. and only a slight trough left in the east. That tells us that we're swinging back into warmer conditions for much of the eastern half of the country, pretty much a full reversal from where we started. On Monday, the 14th, we've got some light rain and maybe some snow in the Rockies, but it's a relatively calm day. The jet stream still favors warmth for the east. Tuesday, the 15th, is when we might see a stronger low pressure system form up in Canada and start dragging a cold front through the Great Lakes. That could lead to some severe weather potential across the plains, Midwest, and possibly into the Ohio Valley. Still pretty far out. About 10 days, but it's definitely something to watch as those setups can evolve quickly. By Wednesday the 16th, that front slides down into the south central and deep south, triggering more showers and possibly storms along the Appalachian region too. Then way out toward the 17th and 18th, the model is hinting at another cool down. Now, this part of the model run is pretty far out, close to 300 hours, so we take it with a grain of salt. But it is interesting to see the possibility of one last cold shot as we approach the 20th of April. That kind of cold gets harder to come by the deeper we go into spring. So it'll be interesting to see if that holds. When we look at total precipitation over the entire period, the Northwest stays fairly active, but not every area is running above average. The Southeast really stands out, though. It looks to be the region with the most consistently above average rainfall during this stretch. The rest of the country, about 9 to 5, is trending on the drier side. And just to wrap things up, let's look at the Storm Prediction Center outlooks. For today, Saturday the 5th, we've got general thunderstorm risk areas in the lighter green, but that doesn't mean you should let your guard down. Always pay attention to watches and warnings. The marginal risk is shown in dark green, indicating isolated severe storms. Yellow means a slight risk with scattered severe activity expected. Then you've got the orange, which is the enhanced risk, and that red zone in northern Mississippi and western Tennessee. That's where the moderate risk is in place today. Very dangerous setup there. Tomorrow continues the trend with more marginal and slight risks across the deeper southeast. And by day 3, things finally start to quiet down a bit. But even on lower risk days, it's important to stay weather aware. These storms can still be impactful. All right. That's everything I've got for you in this update. If you found it helpful, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of the daily uploads. Drop a comment down below and let me know what kind of weather you're seeing in your area. I always love hearing from you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.